Hello and welcome to this movie night review of The Purge, Election Night 2016 film. I will start by just explaining a very brief plot. So essentially this is one where there's an election coming up. I believe in the end it's 2 months after The Purge, which obviously most of the film, it's obviously mostly set on that day. There's much more sort of a political background to it. There's a challenger to the Purge, someone who wants to sort of overthrow it, a senator, and she's, obviously going to challenge the incumbent with the main thing of, getting rid of the Purge. And obviously, it has a lot of other people, but they all essentially come together into one plot of being based around her night, and keeping her safe so that she can stop this, and so on. And yeah, so it's that. If you're not familiar with the Purge, it's just where all murder is legal and all crimes are legal. So that it's all obviously based around a Purge night and her story of it essentially. So I'll start with negatives, just because there's a few. Overall, I would say that I've got a very positive view of this film. So I'll just go through the negatives and the positives. So firstly, and this is my main one, I didn't think there were really that many negatives. If you've seen my review of The Purge Anarchy, I obviously had a lot to say about that one, but this one I thought was a much better film. But the main thing I've got is that I don't like how sort of perfect and like goody-goody the sort of senator is, the one that's running for president. I think that, yeah, they do sort of overplay that a bit. I think, obviously, I'm not saying that she should be a bad person or anything, but obviously in all films, pretty much every character of every film, really, or just every person in real life for that matter, there's obviously two sides to them, no one's perfect. This is the most extreme side of life, the Purge, so the way that she's all, you know, uh, positive and doesn't do anything bad throughout and's all, always going with the sort of side of, the right thing to do. Not to say that, she has to be bad or has to do something really terrible, but just the way that she's always carrying that is maybe a bit excessive and makes it slightly unrealistic. But yeah, it's not sort of too bad a thing. I still think it's a good performance and a good character. Also, just a couple of weird things, really. There's also, it's strange how in one scene when they're in the sort of church kind of thing, when the people who were on the same side as each other, so the ones with the senator and her security guard, and then also the people with Dante Bishop at the bottom, how they shoot at each other, like that was a bit weird, and then they sort of realised. I thought that was just a bit strange, and also there was a slight. I was slightly disappointed at the lack of explanation about the whole Dante Bishop thing. Obviously, it becomes quite prominent in this film, especially towards the end, because obviously it helps them and that kind of thing. And she says, "Oh, I don't approve of what you do." Okay, we know that they go on to do an assassination attempt, but obviously from beforehand. She says it initially of "I don't approve of what you do," and I think we're left guessing slightly at exactly what that is. I think that could have been an interesting subplot and would have taken a lot of the criticism of the whole perfection of the senator, that kind of thing. That would have taken that criticism away a bit more because it would have sort of opened up. But still, at the same time, they do a decent job of providing sort of negative people on both sides, which is obviously probably more realistic. Anyway, that's all I've got for criticisms. In terms of positives, I really like how it has, I think for me at least, the jump scare of the first film is sort of back, and it's much more. Like, I think the amount of plot twists also that this has really lends itself to this. I really, really like the bit where there's the senator and her security guard. They've just escaped from the compound, and multiple people keep on coming out at them. I think that's just really effective, the way they do that with cameras and everything. I think they do a really good job of that. Also, I think one thing that was probably slightly different between this and the other films is there's more, like, a slightly different type of horror, sort of more, I guess, chilling, and yeah, sort of I guess the opposite of jump scare, where it's more creepy. The way that they show, to a certain extent in a graphic way, some of the killings, and I think that just provides a bit of variety, and it sort of does it, but does it sort of slightly better than, because I think there may have been brief ones of that in the Purge Anarchy, but I just think they do that a bit better. I think also, both with what I'm going to talk about now, which is the politics, and the film in general, it's so much more well thought out than the other two films. So rather than like doing really, really brief bits of politics like throughout the Purge Anarchy, which I hammered because I thought that was really annoying in my other review, I think that in this one they sort of do very good, like fairly sensible takes on politics, but in a short amount at the start. So, for example, when they talk about the Purge tourism and that kind of thing, like that was quite an interesting thing to talk about. It also talks about, Purge insurance and that kind of thing, which is sort of fairly logical way of doing it, I think. Because in the other ones, they try to, make it a continuous, and obviously it is continuous because it's about the senator, but they try to sort of commentate over it and provide political points and insights. Whereas with this one, it's obviously about a politician, but not about sort of policies and commentary throughout. So I think that's just a much more positive thing about this film. They do it very appropriately. Also, I think that the plot links itself very well. They have obviously a variety of characters, from the people trying to defend their shop, their link to the insurance thing, the people who are on the Founding Fathers side, the people that are in, obviously the politician and her guard, Dante Bishop. It all just comes together really naturally and really well for me, which I always like with films. I think that it's really important to have that. I think that, I think the film just sort of works really smoothly, which just makes it that bit more sort of, I guess it, gets you into the film a lot more, makes it more compelling, and sort of makes you appreciate a lot more the sort of scenes of the drama and the jump scare and that kind of thing when they come into it, if you're more compelled into the film. And I think that's exactly what the plot does, so you can only sort of praise it for that. Furthermore, I touched on it earlier, but I really like the amount of plot twists. I obviously just sort of find it very irritating. I think films have gone away from it a bit more. But, when there's a perfect ending and that kind of thing, or, whatever, I think they sort of get it just right with a plot twist, with the sort of the deaths at the end. You have the way in which there is a sense of success. You have sort of a lot of different things going on. You have the bits where obviously they're taken, and they get rescued by the people who are on the rooftop with the shop. There's just a lot of things that are changing throughout the film, which again, much like how I talked about the plot, it just makes it that bit more compelling and enjoyable to watch. I also think that it has a great variety. I think it attempted variety in the Purge Anarchy, but really sort of nailed it this time. I think not only in the terms of the horror that it provides, but actually it has some really good sort of classic sort of action scenes, essentially. Some things you'd see in an action film, especially that one at the end, where there's the security guard and someone, like, sort of, I guess, leading the army, or someone who previously leads the army of the new Founding Fathers. They have that battle out, and I think a fairly successful way. I think it's a fairly decent bit of action and combat, and so that was really good. And as I said, I think to summarise it, it's just a much more well thought out film. I think that it essentially provides pretty much everything you want. It has the entertainment without being sort of, I guess, I don't like it personally when films are just stupid and like completely unimaginable. And obviously, this manages to provide a sort of virtual dystopia and not be sort of crazy, and be entertaining. So to do all those things, I really do think this is a very good film, a big improvement on the previous film, of course. So to summarise, I would probably give it 4.5 stars out of 5. Thank you for listening to this review. See you next time.